Robert took his free rein to nearly manic levels for his next role in Oliver Stone's film Natural Born Killers.
I actually love Robert Downey Jr. in Natural Born Killers. In many ways, while it's a morally dubious film, I think one would have to say, he's terrific in it.
He plays this crazy TV tabloid-style host of a show, and I mean, that film, by all accounts, was an unhinged experience. Robert Downey Jr. completely committed to that role, completely committed to that film.
Life is a hunt. I've seen it. I was there when the hit the fan at Grenada. I saw it all go down at Grenada.
And you could say it's an over-the-top performance, but if you're going to give an over-the-top performance, then I think Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers is the place to do it.
By this time, it was clear that Downey had returned to drugs, and not even his first child could change things. In September of 1993, his wife Deborah gave birth to a son, Indio. But Downey fell further into darkness and soon started using heroin.
Robert Downey Jr. has said that it's around the time of his performance in Home for the Holidays, which was directed by Jodie Foster, that he started using heroin and also using drugs on set.
He's not responding at all. Mom, I have got the best trendy booze for you. It's apple cinnamon liqueur. We're pushing it all over the Northeast this year. It's a huge hit, but you get it first because you are a Belle Larson trendsetter. Spin, Mommy. Spin, Mommy.
And Jodie Foster knew what was going on, and she actually staged a sort of mini intervention, and she went up to him and said, like, I know what you're doing, and you know I know what you're doing. He basically just blew her off.
She wasn't upset with the dailies. She got the work, she got the performance, but she was probably very upset about, well, what's happening with him now? Where's Robert going to go? This is getting serious.
For most of his 20s, Robert Downey Jr. was able to keep his heavy drug use out of the public eye. But around 1995, he started smoking heroin and freebasing cocaine.
Whenever you start using heroin, period, but when you're using heroin when you're working, I think you're not going to go to a good place. I mean, that's the beginning of the end.
In the summer of 1996, Robert's addiction finally caught up with him. In the span of 1 month, he was arrested 3 times. Each case was more bizarre than the last.
The first, where he's pulled over after going like a bat out of hell on the Pacific Coast Highway, clearly out of his mind on drugs and with a gun in the car. And then the famous or infamous Goldilocks incident, where he breaks into a neighboring house and lies down in the bed of a child of a neighbor, and the police are called.
911 emergency, we're reporting.
And there's a strange man in my child's bed.
He's unconscious.
He was kind of shook up and he would moan and kind of talk, but he seemed to have just got right back to sleep.
Just 3 days after this call, Robert was picked up by the police again. They found him wandering Los Angeles after escaping from his court-assigned rehab. To make matters worse, every incident became front-page news.
It could only have been embarrassing for Robert Downey Jr. how much coverage his problems got.
Oh, the press was all over him. I mean, it was a field day.
How do you feel?
Let us over this part at least.
Anything you'd like to clear up, Robert? Yeah, just tell us that. How are you feeling these days?
He has said that he wouldn't have lasted 15 minutes in today's culture of, like, you know, just everybody is a walking paparazzi with their cell phone and their digital cameras.
When you're wandering into people's houses, you could be next minute wandering on the Pacific Coast Highway and get hit by a semi. I mean, really, it was dangerous and terrifying and sad.
At Robert's third court appearance in the summer of '96, Judge Lawrence Meara of the Malibu Municipal Court told Downey in no uncertain terms, one more slip-up and it was prison. He then ordered Robert to a locked-in treatment clinic and 3 years probation.
I think he went through some hardcore rehab. I think at least half a dozen, if not a dozen, different cycles of serious rehab, some time in sobriety, and then relapse, and then collapse.
Despite the fact that this was real rehab and not a celebrity spa, Robert was allowed to leave the facility for work. James Toback saw what Robert was going through and decided to help in the only way he knew.
Somehow seeing him in that courtroom, I thought, this is a good time to write something for him.
Two Girls and a Guy was a big deal in that it came at a moment when Downey was in a lot of trouble. And the fact that Toback would hire him to make this film, I think really helped him a lot personally.
I do think it was important for him to be working then, but that wouldn't be a reason to make a movie. And nor would he have wanted it that way. He was in no way looking at anything as a gift, a handout, a charity case.
Shot in less than 2 weeks in one location, Two Girls and a Guy was a perfect showcase for Robert's talents. Downey rose to the occasion and gave one of the most harrowing performances of his career.
In Two Girls and a Guy, he plays a guy who gets busted. He's got two girlfriends who accidentally meet each other, and so instead of like breaking up with him, they sort of stage like this weird emotional intervention.
There's an emblematic moment in Two Girls and a Guy where Robert Downey Jr. He's lied, he's fooled people, he's fooled them both, and he's standing in front of a mirror and he's berating himself.
Stop bullshitting everyone. Stop deceiving everyone. Stop doing this. And yourself, too. You should promise me this right now. Like the real promise, the real deal now.
There are a lot of actors who are ready to spill the beans in a way that makes you a little embarrassed. I don't know of any other actor who goes that far in giving up what there is to give up and can do it in a way that is hypnotic and not in any way cloying. That's the great gift.
With Two Girls and a Guy, Downey showed Hollywood he was ready to work. However, his checkered past made it difficult for him to be insured.
The insurance companies really don't want to touch him with a barge pole. He's being drug tested on an extremely regular basis. And frankly, you got to think, well, maybe he's going to fall back into trouble at any point anyway.
I remember one insurer calling me up, actually, and asking about him. And I said, well, instead of worrying about a lot of crap that you've heard, why don't you just look at the guy's record? He's always delivered. He's always been there.
Regardless, Downey had to sacrifice most of his salary to pay insurance premiums when he took supporting roles in US Marshals and The Gingerbread Man. But before those films were released in the summer of 1998, Downey relapsed and failed another drug test. Once again, he was back in court.
Mr. Downey, if you want to address the court, now's the time.
Yes, I may, Your Honor. I don't know why, with the severity and the fear of you, of death, and of not being able to live a life free of drugs has not been enough for me to not continually relapse, seek treatment again, relapse, seek treatment again.
Judge Mira had run out of patience.
Now you got to understand here that I'm running out of resources to keep you out of state prison. Now, I am not going to just put you back in rehabilitation. I'm going to violate your probation in this case in a way, and I'm going to incarcerate you. And I'm going to incarcerate you in a way that's very unpleasant for you. I'm doing that because I believe if you understand that's where you're going, maybe it'll save your life. It may not. I'm going to sentence you to 180 days in the county jail. All right, Mr. Downey, I'll see you back on April 7th, 1998 at 8:30 this division. I hope this works.
Thank you.
So this was real jail. He went for more than 100 days. He got in fights in prison. You know, there were photographs of him in his prison regalia. I mean, this is not a guy who got off scot-free.
In an incredible fall from grace, Robert Downey Jr. went from Oscar-nominated actor to inmate P50522 in 5 years.
So around this time, The Gingerbread Man is released, in which Robert Downey Jr. plays quite a boozy private eye. And I think this is the point, really, where his personal problems actually become a problem in terms of perceiving the character, because his appearance on screen and his performance is actually met by laughs. And unintentionally provoked laughs by the audience.
And I think people were starting to really lose patience. I mean, he's got incredible talent, he's got good looks, he's got, you know, a career that most the people in this town would literally kill for. And I think people were, you know, they went from being like, oh, poor Robert, to sort of like, oh man, you know, give me a break. He was really losing a lot of public sympathy.
For the rest of the 90s, Downey continued to struggle through his rehabilitation. For every step forward, he seemed to take 2 back.
His drug problems were such that for a couple of years, we saw more pictures of him at the Malibu court talking to judges than we did any movies at the multiplex.
This is when I think people were saying, you know, it's over. It's like, you know, he's not going to be able to resurrect this image. He's not going to be able to resurrect his career. I mean, he can barely hold it together. He's in jail, you know, and he can't hold it together.